Welcome back. Today, pandemic fatigue. For months, we have been dealing with a viral threat. This can cause anxiety, depression, and a feeling of just being tired and worn down. And it makes sense. We're afraid of getting sick, losing our jobs, missing out on sports seasons, seeing friends, losing a loved one.
So many things. So how can we protect our mental health? Dr. John Duffy is a clinical psychologist, best-selling author, and parenting expert. We're excited to have him here. Good morning, Dr. Duffy.
Good morning. It's good to talk to both of you.
Good morning.
Yeah. Thanks for joining us. I think everyone sort of feels this fatigue, and a lot of people aren't really sure why or what's going on with them or able to even pinpoint it. But how do you describe pandemic fatigue?
Yeah, it's exactly what you're talking about, Tiffany. All these elements of our lives that have changed so dramatic this year that result in actual symptoms of depression and anxiety and literally physical exhaustion. All my clients are telling me how just wiped out and tired they feel. And some of the symptoms that we're feeling are more severe. Some people are experiencing panic attacks for the first time, or that agoraphobia, that fear of going out for the first time. So it is a real thing that we're going through here. Collectively, I think we're all experiencing some of it, and some of us are feeling way more of it than others.
So it's a real thing. Is it normal? Is it a sign that we're ill if we're feeling anxious right now or down or tired?
I'm glad you asked. And no, it is not necessarily a sign that there is something terribly wrong with us. It's actually a really normal reaction to a wildly abnormal set of circumstances. So here we've got this pandemic that's got us home and away from work, and our kids are all discombobulated and their schedules are upside down. So to feel some degree of fatigue after 6 full months now of this whole pandemic period is perfectly normal. So unless you're symptomatically in the extreme and you are not able to function very well, this is actually a really, really normal thing to feel. And the time to be concerned would be if you feel unaffected by it altogether. That would concern me. But people who are telling me, yeah, I feel weary, I feel like I'm really over this and I really need to move on to something that feels a little more normal, that's the right lane to be in. That's perfectly normal.
Yeah, I've said to people, I feel like I'm on empathy overload all the time. And this can be anything from like eating more, sleeping less, feeling nervous, unmotivated, all those things. So how do we cope with it? What are some skills we can employ?
Yeah, so what you're describing, if you go back to March, right, when this all started, we were all idling anxiously on high. We were pre-traumatic and worried about what was coming. Now, 6 months in, we're post-traumatic and pre-traumatic. We don't know what's coming. We know what's already been here. So we're really worn down. So there are a number of things we need to do for self-care and for care of our families. And that means and people are really getting tired of the phrase new normal, but at least a new temporary normal for ourselves and our families. And that would mean some degree of structure, getting work done on a regular basis, getting out of that kind of holiday mode of not attending to what we're eating or when we're sleeping, and really paying attention to how we're living our lives and getting back to living in a far more deliberate way. And a lot of people are taking advantage of the idea that school's starting now to get going in that direction.
Are you a fan of things like free meditation apps or videos where you can take a course on forgiveness or adopting peace or intentional thought, journaling? Some of those, I guess, are sort of self-care things, but not necessarily seeing a professional like you, but doing some of those other things that are very accessible to us. Do they make a difference?
Yes, they absolutely do. Great question. The Calm app, the Headspace app, countless YouTube videos that help us to get centered and meditate and relax. One of my favorite things that a lot of my clients are doing is they're taking this Yale-based course on happiness. And I don't know if you guys are familiar with this or have heard about this, but I've got 14-year-olds who are taking this college class on happiness. And it's just kind of a guide to being present in the moment. Anything you can do and find that gets you centered and gives you presence of mind in the midst of all this and gets you calm and breathing in a normal way we're not doing a lot of this if we're not paying attention to our mental well-being. And there are ways of doing that that do not require a session fee with me or other psychologists or therapists. You can do this on your own very, very effectively.
I love that you mentioned the Calm app. That's the one I use for meditation. I love it. I know Molly's a big fan of meditation. I think so many people are missing things, the events, the traditions, the family get-togethers, the concerts, the arts, the sports, whatever it may be that we're used to distracting ourselves with. We have no distractions in our life. So how do we, is it good that we create new traditions? How do we get creative with that time that we have without just filling space to fill space?
Yeah. The first thing to do is to legitimately allow yourself and your family to grieve the very real losses that we are all experiencing. And they're layered and they're thick and they're rich, and there's an awful lot to those losses. And if we blow them off, we're going to carry the weight of those around. But there are some positives that we can take away from this period of time. So we can create new traditions, new rituals, more time with family. A lot of families have told me, well, we haven't eaten dinner together or any meal together for years, and now we do that every single day, or we spend a day together a week as a family, or some other ritual. Some families are geocaching, like going out and getting out in the outdoors and in the woods and doing things that they would ordinarily never do. So I strongly urge people to take advantage of this time that won't last forever and establish new traditions and rituals, keeping in mind we're going to remember 2020, whether we want to or not. We are going to remember this time. And so it is kind of imperative to create some memories for ourselves and our kids that are not just awful, but are really like very encouraging and uplifting, and new traditions that maybe our kids can carry on with their kids, because we might be creating some new normal that's going to last well beyond the pandemic.
How are you feeling specifically about your younger patients, adolescents, kids who are in high school and college? Because I know you see a lot of young adults, younger people. How are they doing? I mean, they're opening up to you, and I'm just wondering, as a parent, what you think about our younger generation and how they're faring.
Yeah, I'm fortunate enough to have some inside information about the minds of our young people. You're right. And what I'm hearing from them is some degree of hopelessness, to be honest. It's not great to hear, but it's just a truth. They don't have a lot of faith that we have the thing together and figured out in terms of their academics, in terms of them getting together with their friends. They don't see a realistic or logical end to the pandemic. So there are two things that I would encourage parents to do. One is to listen, and to listen openly. Don't just try to talk your child out of the way he or she feels, but really let them air it out, because they're smart and they know what's going on. The other is to create some degree of hope. One young person recently said, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to live as if. I'm going to work out as if my season is going to take place next semester, or I'm going to work on my acting or my debating, or I'm going to work on my ACT skills as if things are going to be perfectly fine. And I might have to move my as if down the road some degree, in some point in time. But still, if I act as if, then I'm moving and I'm carrying some degree of hope around. And I'm encouraging all the parents I work with to use that as if model, because I think it's really useful.
I love that as if part. Dr. Duffy, thank you so much for your time today. It's really important conversation that we're all having. We appreciate it.
Good to
Thank
see
you so much.
Thank you so much. And Dr. Duffy's book is called Parenting the New Teen in the Age of Anxiety. You can learn more about him, listen to his podcast. He has a great website if you go to drjohnduffy.com.